Hello, welcome to Quilt in Color. Today is day 13 of the 15 minutes to quilt challenge. I hope you sew along with me so that you can get an entry in the drawing. Today I'm working on the Kaleidoscope quilt. The Kaleidoscope quilt is a really beautiful traditional pattern that you make with triangles, but it looks like circles. Here's the sample here of one. I started mine a long time ago and I didn't think I was up to the challenge of making specific colorways. So mine is a basic kaleidoscope with just lights and darks. I started this quilt a long time ago before I really had the skill level to make this quilt. But I specialize in making mistakes even now. So I'll show you what I do about the mistakes that I made in the past. And I probably will make some new ones today. And I'll show you what I do about those as well. So let's get started. The kaleidoscope block is made with equilateral triangles. And basically you just alternate light, dark, all the way around. So it's pretty easy to put together. And then you put the half square triangles on 4 sides to make the block. So on half of the blocks you put the corner triangles on the light fabric so that the dark forms this plus sign. And on the other half you put the corner triangles on the dark triangles so that it forms a cross. It forms a times sign. And then when you put the blocks together, you just alternate the plus and the times, plus, times. And when you are finished, you end up with this beautiful design that looks like circles that go all the way around. And these circles lead your eye all the way throughout the quilt. So in my box, there's a lot of these triangles already cut, but I've decided that I'm not going to sew these together yet because I might just leave it. I have enough finished blocks that maybe I'll just make the quilt the size that it is with the finished blocks, and I can decide after that whether or not I need to make more blocks or whether I can repurpose these triangles into a different block. So let me show you what the blocks look like. So these blocks can easily be made by the confident beginner, and the beginner may not notice the mistakes that they make. You can see that my points are pretty good in the middle here, and there's no big lumps here. Some of the triangles may be suspect, but I think they're doable as well. The points look like they're fine. There's a 1/4 inch seam, room for a seam allowance. So let's just go through them. So you can see the variety of the fabrics that's being used. This fabric is using the Drunkard's Path block. A lot of these are used in other quilts, and some of them are purchased specifically for this quilt. But you can see that I have the green and purple colorway. And I was told that green and purple needs to have some orange in it, so there's some orange or yellow to help balance it out in case your eye is looking for that other color. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of blocks already made. This one needs to be sewn. Okay, there's also, I probably had already made the same decision before, so go ahead and start sewing the blocks together because it's a really exciting thing to do. So these blocks are ones that are sewn together. This one has been sewn together correctly. You can see that I had some problems with getting the points correct, and I think that's the problem with this block for a confident beginner, is that it's easy to make the original blocks, but putting them together is where you can wind up having problems because you need to match the points here. I think these points here are close enough to not matter too much in the quilt, because your eye will still just be led away from that intersection. So I'm going to leave these the way they are. This particular block, you can see, is a problem block because it's got two multiplication signs, and we need one that is a plus and a multiplication, plus and times. So this is the way the quilt block needs to be done, with the plus and the times, and not the one with the times and the times. So this one will have to be ripped out and fixed. I have a bunch of other blocks that have already been sewn together, so let me show those to you. You can see this one's a little bit bad, but it's fine. You can see the plus and the times. Plus and times, this one's beautifully sewn. Plus and times, this one's beautiful too. So you can see, if you just try hard enough, it'll work out okay. It's just a matter of making sure that you match the points. My philosophy is that you make the quilts that you think are the most beautiful, because there's a limit in my lifetime of how many quilts that I can make. So even though I didn't have the skill level to make these, that's how I can build. The only way I can build up the skill level is to make them. And you can see that I didn't trim the blocks either. They are just cut the way they are. They're sewn together, and so I think I'm just going to continue with that because it looks like it's working out okay. Eventually I think I do. Eventually I will, even if I didn't. Yeah. You can see I did cut off the dog ears after I sewed them. And I will still do that just to avoid some bulk. And it helps to lay them out with the plus times in the same order always, so that it keeps you more organized. But eventually when you sew them together, you'll turn them over so you're alternating the times and the plus, like this. There's some more blocks. I like this color here. I think it adds a lot to the quilt. So as you can see, there's a whole bunch of blocks already made. They're all scrappy. There's a lot of variety in all of the fabrics. And it's just a matter of getting the darks and the lights separated. And that's one way. A lot of people complain about scrap quilts looking like too much of a mishmash. And if you make specific colors, that does make it a little bit easier to make it look more planned. But really, any colorways that you use will be fine as long as you keep track of the plus and the minus, as long as you keep track of the darks and the lights. That's it. I think there's plenty of blocks here to make a wall hanging size quilt, maybe even a little bit bigger, maybe a lap quilt size. And so I think today I'm just going to go ahead and just start putting together the blocks. There are two things that I want to tell you about this before we get started. First of all, I'm not using a design wall for this quilt. Generally, it's a good idea to use a design wall to make sure your colors are balanced and the quilt looks the way you expect it to look, but I think for this one, I'm okay with going ahead and putting it together. I think it's scrappy and I think there's enough variety in the fabrics that it'll look fine. And the other thing that I want to tell you is about pinning. You want to make sure that you pin these blocks correctly. So what I like to do is I take the pin, take a nice thin pin, as the thinnest pin is good, put the pin in the intersection. You want to put the pin exactly in the intersection of where these two blocks meet each other, and then you want to put it through the intersection of the other piece. This is not a tutorial for how to make these, but just saying it since we're here. And then once I do that, once I put the pins in both places, then I make sure that all the block is square, and then put the pin the rest of the way through, like this. And if it needs additional pins, I can do that as well. I think this one is fine the way it is, and I can hold on to the edges without worrying about pinning it. So I'll go ahead and sew. All of these are plus block. There's a times block here, so I can put these together. And even though there's a fabric here that's the same as a fabric here, I'm okay with that. I think overall in the look of the quilt, it's not going to be that obvious. Joining this intersection, do the next intersection, arrange the block, both sides. Lost a pin here. Once I arrange the block, I can push this rest of the pin in. And you can see this one's a little bit less. I didn't press it properly, so I can just try to get it as close to the edge as possible. This is a pressing problem. So I'm going to make sure that my pin is not folding that fabric in a way it's not supposed to. And see, now you can see that it fits. Pressing these blocks before I start sewing them would have gone a long way in making sure that I can avoid more problems. Just holding on to the edges here to make sure they line up right. Get the pin out of the way. plus block. Another plus block. There's a times block. I'm going to use a different plus block for this one because this is a nice exciting block, and I do want an exciting block, but maybe this is too much for, since there's interesting blocks here too, interesting fabrics here. Have a little plainer block on this one. This is a cross, this is a plus, that'll work. This one also has one fabric that's in both blocks. This block does not have a 1/4 inch seam here, or might not. So we'll do the best we can, and I'm fine with it if it doesn't match exactly. I'm going ahead and matching the 1/4 inch, even though this is a little bit less than that. I could resew this block. I'm going to resew this seam actually. You can see it's just a matter of sewing it just a little bit more on this side to make it work. So I might as well fix it since we can, since it's an easy fix. Most of the corrections will be pretty easy to fix. If you have a mistake in the previous block, you can probably fix it. Okay, my 15 minutes is up. I was able to sew 1, 2, 3, 4 blocks and fix one of them. This video is one of a series of videos where I show you all the quilts that I have in the works. I hope that you did sew along with me, and if you did, just let me know in the comments what you worked on and how much you got done in your 15 minutes to sew today, and I'll give you an entry in the drawing. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you can make sure that you get each of the day's videos. There's a link here that'll show you yesterday's video in case you missed that one. Thank you for your support, and we'll see you tomorrow.